Since you clicked this video, I assume you already watched Captain America Brave New World, so welcome to the spoiler review. I already have a non-spoiler review that gives off my general thoughts about the movie, and here I can actually talk about the things I liked, some issues I had with the film, and a couple things I feel like, yeah, they weren't shown in the trailers, and some of this feels a little bit spoilery if I did talk about it in my regular review. If you haven't seen the movie already, come back later after you've seen it, or just be one of those guys. For some reason, it's kind of weird, and I don't even know if I'm worth in mentioning it now, but what happened to just watching movies and actually giving your own separate opinions? Like seriously, this whole oh we're gonna trash talk movies, so like that oh we can rant about it online. I kind of miss the days where people would just go be excited for the thing instead of trying to overanalyze it like how we do now. I miss being surprised, natural reactions to stuff, and I feel like yeah, hopefully we could actually try to improve as fans, or at least as moviegoers nowadays. That was my little rant going into it, so let's get on to the review. The plot, going back to my review, goes as Sam Wilson trying to investigate an assassination attempt on the president. Nations are trying to get control of the huge sentinel in the middle of the ocean. Gus Frank wants revenge on Sam, and Red Hulk. That's a brief summary of all the plots in this movie, so let's get on to some spoilers. So the movie starts out without the Marvel Studios logo, where it just has Marvel Studios Presents. That was kind of new, and also the fact that I feel like I was hoping to see the Marvel Studios logo again, since after Deadpool and Wolverine, we kind of got like them included, and I wanted to see if they're going to add something different, or make this one something like Captain America centric, like how the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 intro was. It starts out with Sam and Torres on a mission to retrieve some type of urban metal from the Serpent Society. As you heard earlier on, this movie was reshot for a couple things. The Serpent Society, there were a couple key members in this movie that I feel like, okay, we've seen promos, we've seen little McDonald's toys out there. Most of that stuff was actually removed from the film, but at least some little pieces of reshoot feels like they wanted to include them as their main villains, since you have Sidewinder out there hunting down Sam. But their intro here actually kind of reminded me of the beginning of Winter Soldier. Like when you remember that Steven and Natasha were on a mission trying to retrieve some files, and the fact that, okay, it's almost the same, but I get to see the little difference in fight styles. Like when you look at Winter Soldier, Steve feeling like, okay, he's been through World War II. He just fought through an alien invasion. You're seeing him do daily shield missions like it's no problem. Here we get a look at Sam's new suit, and also the fact that we get to see how he actually uses combat, where I feel like, okay, he has no super soldier serum. He's just relying on the wings and a little bit of vibranium tech on the hand. We already knew he had government training, and we get to see all that skills being put to motion here. And the difference in fights, because you get to see that with Steve versus Sam, you get the feeling like, yeah, Steve is super enhanced and everything is going to be fast as Sam. Even though he doesn't have the serum, you got to remember, yeah, he's agile, he can fight, but also I kind of like the way you're seeing Sam actually take battle damage. And seeing Torres in action, because you got to remember, yeah, he worked with Sam alongside him in Falcon and Winter Soldier, but even though it was like, oh, what are you going to do with these wings? And he actually repaired the wings. Seeing how he's excited actually working with Sam and also feeling like, hey, I'm part of the Avengers. Can I go meet Ant-Man? I like his enthusiasm. I actually feel like, yeah, if we were actually going to be heroes working alongside these guys, that's how mostly everybody would act in this situation, instead of being like, oh, Avengers, and then suddenly people are like, the who now? They retrieved the medal, and obviously, since we've already seen the trailers and some information back at Comic Con, the medal is adamantium. Yes, the medal that's used for Wolverine. That was great to see, and also I feel like now that you're introducing adamantium into this world, in this case, the main 616 MCU timeline, shouldn't there already be X people or a Logan, a James Howlett, something like that out there already? Like when you look at Deadpool and Wolverine, you got to remember those characters are from the Fox timeline. And seeing as though the MCU doesn't have an X-Men team yet, they just have mutants introducing them. And if there's another X-Men world, because you got to remember at the end of the Marvels, Monica Rambeau got teleported into another dimension or universe, and she woke up in the X Mansion, where I feel like, okay, so there are X-Men here, and there's our main duo somewhere else. Is everything going to connect at some point, or is that their way of saying this is their world, and are they going to cross over? It's not till they get to the White House and Isaiah Bradley and a few other Service Service members take shots at President Ross. Part of me, because I feel like it's kind of coincidental that a couple of the things they did in this movie, where I feel like they shot them years ahead when this was released, because this was supposed to really be releasing last year in May. A couple moments reminded me of some real life sequences or situations where I feel like taking shots at presidents, assassination attempts for some reason. I feel like, art reflecting life, or the other way around, however that saying goes. Also, something I want to reiterate from my review is the fact that there are some moments in this movie where I feel like, okay, this is the MCU, everybody and almost the whole world has been following at this point. We kind of know everything, how ins and outs goes. We all know mind control exists already, and the fact that it's like, okay, we know that exists. And when Isaiah Bradley got accused of, oh, he just snapped, he actually just turned on the president. Nobody thought it was weird that somebody suggested mind control, And they're like, mind control, that can't even happen. How do you know he didn't just actually rely on his enemies? Part of me was like, we do have another character that's been through this, and that was Bucky when he was Winter Soldier. Like every time Hydra brought him back and they reset his memory again, it feels like, yeah, they still have the words in his head, but then again, he surpassed that, and I feel like, okay, mind control, he was once in it, and then when he was brought out, he turned a new leaf. Strangely, nobody brought that up in this movie, and I feel like that's kind of weird. But that scene when Isaiah comes out of his trance and he's looking around all the cops, government officials around him, and that was heartbreaking. Seeing as though, if you remember from Falcon and Winter Soldier, he did mention that he was experimented on. He was a test subject of the U.S. government because he had the super soldier serum in him. He went on missions. He went back to jail, back and forth, only to be let out again. And I like how this was just a mention because even though some people haven't watched all the Disney Plus shows, they at least refer to, okay, so okay, this happened in Endgame, so he's Captain America, but who are all these people? At least they actually give a mention and a nod to what happened in the previous show. So like that, some newcomers who see these characters are like, oh, Winter Soldier, okay, he's a super soldier, got that. Besides that little Endgame story with Sam, that's something I wish the majority of this movie was about because something in me feels like, okay, you call this Captain America, but the rest of this movie feels like a mini Incredible Hulk sequel inside of a new Captain America movie. Somewhere, I don't even know if this was originally meant to be a Captain America sequel or should I say an Incredible Hulk sequel. I don't know if they feel like, okay, Universal still owns the Hulk. We kind of want to do this little mini project, but where do we incorporate that whole story? And I feel like they looked at Captain America and they said, okay, let's try to merge those ideas into one so at least we can get some new actual sequel-ish whatever this is going to be. Like when they announced that the leader was the villain at Comic-Con, I said that's interesting choice because isn't he supposed to be, I don't know, somebody fighting against the Hulk since he actually has chemistry and actual history with that character? The Serpent Society is here, but then again, they're not like a main threat in this movie because I feel like, okay, we had the Serpent Society with all the reshoots we had, we feel like okay, this could have been good for the intro, but then again, after that, you were gonna go past it, and I feel like that Serpent Society was just there for the beginning. Also, the fact that you kind of do notice in the reshoots where I feel like okay, the Serpent Society were just meant to be a team of these other characters, but we didn't even know we were gonna meet up with the leader. And later on, Giancarlo Esposito was cast as Sidewinder, the leader of the Serpent Society, and he's only there to cause tiny little problems that don't affect the movie. Where I feel like okay, he's there to cause problems with Sam since I feel like okay, these two characters actually been around hunting each other. I'm not gonna act like he wasn't menacing every time he was on screen. And those scenes where he actually caught up with the Gatling gun, actually shooting up Sam out of nowhere. But my favorite scene with him was actually the shootout with the car. Sam was on his way back from the prison, and out of nowhere, and it kind of did scare me, the audience, because the Gatling gun actually just the bullets came out of nowhere. He was ready to kill Sam, and the fact that you're seeing this whole fight, and it's like he doesn't have the suit, he doesn't have the shield, and you're kind of seeing as though, oh, let's see how he actually is without the suit. Where I feel like, yeah, you can call him Captain America, but then again, everybody still sees him as Falcon. And I kind of like the fact that he was playing with Sam being human, and also the fact that he is Captain America, but technically speaking, he's still human and he can actually take some physical damage. He got stabbed, had an axe through his side. And it shows, even without the suit, Sam is still Captain America, like putting himself on the front line and not relying on the suit just to get him in a situation like this will happen. And he's immortal. You got to remember that people kept saying he needs the serum, but I'm like, this makes him stand out and actually be what Captain America should be, not what people want him to be, like how they wanted to do in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Let's talk about the leader because Tim Blake Nelson returns from the Incredible Hulk, and after the events of that film, it's revealed that he was working with Ross and he kept him away locked up using his brain for his advantage. Like when you remember how he turned Blonsky into the Abomination at the end of that film, and after he got damaged on his forehead, some of the Bruce Banner's blood got on it, and he actually started turning his head a giant. I don't have a problem with him being here, but part of me, I feel like it doesn't work that he's there to be a villain for Sam Wilson, if that makes sense. And I gotta talk about this because this is kind of weird because we've seen promotional art for this movie beforehand. Like we already saw how Red Hulk was gonna look like. Also, the fact that they showed off a little Funko figure where I feel like, oh, he's gonna have the giant head just like in the comics. And also some new stuff came out with him with the big head where I feel like that's realistic enough. He still has his hair. It's not too Modoc out, but I feel like okay, that's good enough look. But when you look at him in here, he looks a bit more different where he is transformed, but most of his head is just his brain out, and you see his one eye working. He has green skin, but part of me I feel like, is this a reshoot? Did they reshoot this? Because also the fact that I don't even know if it is green screen, but he was walking around in like a green screen room where he would be there, and suddenly the background would just turn green as if it wasn't even ready yet. He works as the leader, but part of me I feel like okay, it's good that you have him back in the MCU actually trying to resolve one of those leftovers where I feel like yeah, they could have at least addressed this some in a different movie. But part of the issue with that is you got to remember Bruce Banner's out there. He's still operating as the Hulk, and the fact that it's like yeah, President Ross got shot at, and you think not even he would go, oh, something's going on, and I have to actually look into it. Lately, the MCU is starting to treat Bruce Banner like a side character, knowing that he's the Hulk, and also the fact that he is basically Smart Hulk right now. Where I feel like, yeah, some of these Hulk characters that have been bringing back lately, a couple of them have a little bit been disappointing. Like we went from Rage Hulk to Smart Hulk, where I feel like, yeah, he doesn't even like smashing things, so what's the point? She Hulk, for as many problems people had, it is kind of disappointing to the fact that we have a good design with She Hulk. Yeah, it's a little bit too CGI, uncanny wise, but besides that, the story they put her through, it's not her fault. I wish they would have done the classic, oh, she need the blood transfusion, but she's actually lawyer by day, hero by night type of thing. And bringing back the Abomination only for Blonsky to be actually a pacifist, where I feel like, okay, he has years to actually get his revenge, but I feel like, okay, so you just don't want to fight anymore. And the fact that they had the Abomination and comic accurate look, that was cool enough. But then again, I feel like if you're gonna bring back the Abomination and do this, what's the point of just bringing them back and just having them die as they were? Like seriously, if this wasn't even a Captain America movie and it would have been just Captain America versus the Serpent Society, I would have been fine. But if they kind of save that for a solo Hulk film or whatever their Hulk movie they want to do nowadays, they could have had that be the main story and also possibly introduce Rick Jones, where I feel like, yeah, he exists, but also having the Hulk's sidekick in it, I feel like, okay, we have a human Hulk. Also, we got Scar. It would have been cool seeing him in a solo movie, but this is what we got, and I feel like yeah, they're not gonna be fixing Hulk anytime soon unless they try and reboot this thing because that's the only way. Kind of got a little bit off track, but then again, I feel like I have to address this because if I'm being honest with you guys, and it's been that way since I was a kid, the Hulk has been one of my favorite top threes of Marvel characters. Like it's Spider-Man, Wolverine, Hulk. I know I'm not gonna get that anytime sooner, so we just gotta deal with this as it goes. Anyway, back to the review. Speaking of Hulk characters, I did like how Thunderbolt Ross actually isn't a villain this time going around because I gotta feel like, okay, he is president, but then you gotta remember some of the other stuff he's been doing. Like, even though you saw him as, oh, government guy trying to get the Incredible Hulk, and years trying to track him down. Also, the fact that he was hunting down the Avengers in Civil War. And I kind of like how he did learn from his mistakes. Like, if even though Harrison Ford is playing him, you still feel like that character is still that character, and every little mention, every little every appearance he was in does affect this movie now, and I feel like he's learning from his mistake as it goes. And that he has regret and that he's lost people because you got to remember, yes, he regrets not having Captain America or anybody around during the invasion of Thanos. He tried hunting down Bruce for years, and also the fact that Betty was in this movie too, but I feel like yeah, she could have been here a little bit earlier than they tried introducing her because they bring her into the last part of this film where oh, Liv Tyler is back. It would have been cool to see her around this movie because I feel like yeah, there is some story there, and also at least you could try to at least fill in the gaps of what happened between her and Bruce. And weirdly enough, if you haven't kept up with his appearances in the MCU lately, if you rewatch those movies and also especially Black Widow, because I saw that they said watch Black Widow for this film, and I'm like, what's in Black Widow that's key important except that he's in it, but he's only in the beginning. So in Black Widow, they hinted that he had a little bit of heart problems, and he actually got fixed up in a couple months in a lab. And I feel like, okay, that's something. I don't even know if it was a small line or a throwaway line at the time. But in Black Widow, Nat refers to, hey, I know about some things you're doing behind the scenes. I know about your conditions. I know about your problems. Like he knew something that she didn't. And also the fact that you got to remember, since it's revealed that he's been keeping Stearns around to help him out with his heart problems and at least help him try to regain his election. All of that was going on in the background. And if you think about it, yeah, every probability the leader had also kind of did affect the way Avengers would lose. And either way, they would still be broken, even if he didn't even know they were around. So throughout the movie, Ross has been taking these pills that actually calm him down, and at least they seem like pills for his heart. And it's revealed that all those pills come from Stearns himself, and that he's been filling in little tiny pieces of gamma that until it reaches his whole body, he will be able to transform into the Hulk. But man, that scene when he's on the podium, when all the reporters are grilling him, asking him questions, I do like that when he transforms, it goes back to classic original Hulk, where I feel like, okay, nowadays they do the whole morphing where he just turns green and big, but he's just basically Mark Ruffalo, just in a full CGI body. I liked how it went down here since he started looking like a classic Hulk. He did have a little bit of a CG Harrison Ford face, but at least they kept it monstrous and actually try to at least Hulk like, but at least keep the familiar face going. But seriously, I haven't been excited to see an actual Hulk thing on screen, and everything he's been done, like punching Sam through the White House, chasing him around Washington D.C. I felt like, yeah, this is classic Hulk. I wish we could try more with this next time. I do want to say, human or not, super soldier serum or not, there's no way Sam will be taking those hits from Red Hulk and still do this all day. I'd argue the fact that his suit is made of vibranium and the fact that he has those repulsor beams that actually come out as soon as it took enough damage. Also, you gotta remember, even though the suit's made from Wakanda, you still gotta remember there's still weapons out there that could actually take on the Hulk. Like if you remember when Rhodey shot his beam at Scarlet Witch in Civil War, those were the same sound beams that the government used on the Incredible Hulk. I don't know. I feel like if Iron Man, every time he had a new suit who had actually fixing little tiny upgrades over the last one, I feel like, yeah, there should be acknowledgement of the fact that we can actually have that type of equipment next time in our suits. But I feel like, yeah, this is some retconning or storytelling stuff. I feel like, yeah, you got to remember you do have an entire universe out there, and remember that this stuff happened and not just, okay, we'll just skim around and see what happens next time we do this thing. The movie ends with Sam doing the whole sunset getting real low thing on Ross. He calms down, actually shifting him back. He and Stearns both get sent off to the Raft prison. Isaiah gets his name cleared from the government, and Torres survives. That I forgot to mention because during the fight with Tiamat around that whole Celestial Island, I feel like that whole thing, I feel like, okay, this is our way of acknowledging, yeah, Eternals happened and we might have just mentioned it here. That whole sequence was cool and a little bit CGI heavy at times where I feel like, yeah, the camera's doing this thing that Iron Man kind of did better, but it's not doing here. Where I feel like when you look at Iron Man, you see the camera follow him and you see everything as if he was actually flying. But in here, you're seeing like, oh, we're trying to do Top Gun, but not really following the wings. We're seeing him move in midair. During the fight, Taurus's wings got shot and he actually almost died falling into the river. Also, I don't know if it's just me who noticed it, but I feel like that was also part of a reshoots because I feel like, okay, he should have died since he is gone throughout the last third of this film. And how in the trailers there's like a shot of a funeral, and I feel like, okay, somebody dies in this film. I don't know who, but I feel like that could have been Torres's funeral. I'm not even sure if that is a reshoot or they kept him in, but I don't know. It's kind of some feel like there's some stuff in the trailers now within this movie. I feel like what is reshoot or what was originally meant to be there because I feel like this movie's been through a lot of stuff, and I feel like, yeah, this people could agree or disagree on what they wanted, and I feel like that was one of them. The post-credit scene at the very end of this movie this time, it has Sam visit Stearns in his cell, and he pretty much gives off the "you think you're the only hero in this world, that there are other worlds out there," but also this kind of technically implies that he does know about the whole multiverse theory. It's not too big of a post-credit scene, but then again, let's face it, we're 1 year away from Doomsday, and technically speaking, this movie doesn't have anything to do with what's going to happen later along the line. The only big MCU movie that's going to give context to Doomsday is basically Fantastic Four. Also, I didn't know how to segue this earlier on, but Bucky's in the movie, but he's just there for a cameo appearance. He talks to Sam after Torres got injured, but then again, he's just there to give his own, hey, I know Steve gave you the shield, you're Captain America, but then you got to remember, oh, we had this in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I feel like he could have been there for the movie. I just don't know why he wasn't. Kind of funny also that he did mention that, oh, I'm going running for congressman, and also you got to remember that, oh yeah, he's in Thunderbolts, but then you got to remember, wait a minute, so he's already congressman in Thunderbolts, so you're telling me that Brave New World and Thunderbolts could be taking a place around the same time? Also, since Ross is still around at the end of this movie, shows that okay, they could bring him back if they want to, but then again, who knows if he could come back for Thunderbolts since the movie is kind of named after him. He could show up as himself, or he could actually show off as the Red Hulk. Because I feel like, yeah, they're all going up against Sentry, and I feel like, yeah, three super soldiers, some guns, someone who can shapeshift or something. If he doesn't show up in it, I won't have a problem with it. But I kind of feel like if you're gonna bring back Thunderbolt Ross, you might want to have to keep him around for the next two Avenger movies because I feel like, yeah, we're going into our whole Iron Doom multiverse phase, but at least actually have him and Mark Ruffalo meet for one scene. Like seeing those two characters meet again on screen after what's happened years ago, I feel like, yeah, this is a missed opportunity if you don't do it. Also, the fact that I feel like, yeah, this is kind of actually putting together, oh, we've been around since the beginning, and also that even though they have been around since I wouldn't even say 2008, but then again, you got to remember time in between. But seriously, those two meeting again after everything that's happened, it would be satisfying and also at least put closure to them because I feel like, yeah, he's actually been tracking down Bruce from the beginning, and even though he's still the Hulk, He's not going after him and letting bygones be bygones. Those are all the spoilers for Brave New World. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't get the big hate for this film. Yeah, it's a little bit jumbled in between. I feel like, okay, they're trying to incorporate a lot of things into one singular movie. But then again, I feel like, yeah, I still came out loving it. I didn't hate it, but at least I came out like, yeah, it's a good movie. Not one of the best MCU movies. It's always in the middle. If Marvel was smart from the beginning, they could have actually made two solo films like this, because I feel like, yeah, there's a Hulk movie and a Captain America movie where I feel like, yeah, we could have had Thunderbolt Ross, the leader, in a solo Hulk movie, bring back Betty, also bringing in Rick Jones, since I feel like, yeah, all that stuff, all that history, that's there. Let's try to do everything in a solo Hulk movie, and also because lately I just been hearing about some castings. Amadeus Cho was supposed to be in this movie, played by Logan Kim, and I feel like, okay, that's another Hulk character you wanted to put into this, and I feel like, was he gonna be a Hulk, or at least hinting at he was gonna be cool Hulk? All the elements here told me that they wanted to do a Hulk movie, but just didn't end a Captain America movie, when Sam's first Captain America movie could have been Captain America and Falcon 2 versus the Serpent Society, since they were big teases in the movie. And we got two big movies coming out before the big team up, so hopefully they could try to fix this in less than a year, because, yeah, hopefully we get to see a good Avengers movie again. And also, I feel like, yeah, this is now Falcon's time, or should I say Sam Wilson's time, to actually lead the Avengers, which I feel like, yeah, we have a couple lineups where I feel like, yeah, are they even strong enough to actually take on Doctor Doom or Iron Doom? I don't know. Part of me wants to see how Sam is actually going to recruit the next generation of Avengers, especially the fact that maybe this could be the last one. Who knows? All we have to do is wait and see, because even when Marvel puts out a decent movie, at least they could try to say, oh, we'll take some feedback and hopefully we could try to fix this up for the next time. They have a few projects on the TV side coming up, two more movies, and it's funny because we have another movie coming out in July where I feel like, okay, we'll see how Brave New World and Thunderbolts do. They'll be fine. But the big one is Fantastic Four. And also, you have another movie coming out that's called Superman, where I feel like, yeah, I feel like that's gonna be the better movie once that comes out, because, yeah, you can look at Superman and then compare it to, like, oh yeah, Brave New World was okay. We'll see how Thunderbolts do, since not a lot of people are excited for it just yet. We know Fantastic Four is gonna be the biggest one yet, but I feel like, okay, let's see how it does against Fantastic Four, because that's gonna be the big, oh, what's gonna be the best thing in July? All right, guys, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. All my social media is down in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.